Hello friends, it's me, Mr. Wilson, and I'm back with chapter 20. We are going to be done with this book today. I'm so excited for you guys to see how this book turns out. So when we left off in the last video, Stacy and 3 of her wolves were headed up to the ridge to see the other wolf pack. Okay, so once again, thanks to StacyPlays and Harper Publishing for letting me read this book to you. Let's get started finishing this book. Ready? Let's begin. A large part of the switchback that led from the cave to the ridge had been burned away, which made climbing easier, but it also meant that there was thick smoke clogging the air. Stacy's already irritated throat began to feel like it had been scraped raw. It was a slow, steep climb, but they finally made it. Wing was at Stacy's side the whole time, while Basil led the way and Everest walked behind her, making sure she didn't fall. When they finally reached the top, Stacy saw why the other wolves were in trouble. Not only was the fire creeping up to the ridge behind them, it was already raging in the old oak forest on the other side of the ravine, and was moving fast in their direction. They pushed on toward the wild wolves' den, barely able to see through the dark smoke. They had just reached the den when the fire seemed to jump right over the ravine, with a roar that was almost deafening. Stacy could just make out a couple of the youngest nervous wolves nervously pacing, clearly itching to leave, but Dusky and the rest of her pack stood their ground. The fire was so close, nothing could make it safe now. A couple of glowing cinders floated by Stacy's face. The fire would be upon them any moment. "Convince her to leave!" Everest, Stacy yelled. "Try to make her understand!" Everest ran up to Dusky. They had a tense exchange that lasted several seconds. Then Everest turned away and ran back to Stacy. Dusky was standing firm, refusing to leave. "It's not safe here," Stacy shouted. She knew they couldn't understand her, but maybe they'd hear the desperation in her voice. "Come with us. We have a place where we'll all be protected from the fire." She waited for Dusky to make the right decision for her pack, but she refused to do anything other than stay. The rest of her wolves began to panic as the flames became visible over the tops of the trees. A few of them fled, but the majority of them stayed where they were. Some looked as if they wanted to go with Stacy and Everest, yet didn't want to disobey their alpha. Basil and Wink stepped up, communicating something to the wolves that Stacy couldn't understand. The wolves seemed unsure. "We have a safe place," Stacy continued. We've guaranteed safety to lots of different animals, so you have to agree not to hunt while you're with us. But the fire will be here any second and we'll all burn. You have to decide right now." But the decision was taken from all of them. What was once a strong, towering oak tree cracked in two and toppled over flames, licking as its branches, and fell right in the middle of the wolf pack, crushing several of the members. Stacy screamed of unsure how many wolves had just been killed right in front of her. "Wolves are dying. I have to get my wolves out of here." "Come now," she pleaded to Dusky over the flames. Alpha looked over her shoulder to see 3 of her wolves running away, not towards Stacy and Everest, but down the ravine towards the mines. Then Stacy saw them, 2 wolf pups huddled together near the downed tree. Had they lost their parents? Flame danced closer and closer. No matter what Dusky did now, Stacy and her wolves had to leave. Staying would mean certain death. Stacy ran over and scooped up the wolf pups, one in each arm, and turned toward the direction of the switchback. She paused to look over her shoulder. Dusky stood alone in front of her den. She was illuminated by flames, and Stacy could see a large patch of dark red on the wolf's hindquarters. Blood. Dusky wasn't placing any weight on her back left leg. She'd been shot. "She can't walk," Stacy shouted to her wolves. But it was too late to help her. The flames enveloped what was left of the den and consumed Dusky. "Oh, Dusky, poor girl." There was no time to mourn the loss of Dusky and the others. They had set off down the switchback, back to the safety of their cave. "You're going to be okay," Stacy whispered to the pups. As storm clouds began to gather around them, "We're going to take care of you." They reached the bottom of the ridge just as the first crack of thunder boomed and raindrops fell. This was a good steady rain, the kind of rain that put out fires and fed the earth. "This should keep the fire from spreading," Stacy said. "We're going to be fine." Suddenly there was a blinding flash and then a big boom. Stacy instinctively crouched low to the ground and tightened her grip on both of the pups. She smelled singed fur. "Basil, no!" Stacy staggered to her feet and peered through the already dwindling rain at Basil, who was trying to stand up. The wolf had a jagged, bloody strike down the left side of her body. Basil had been struck by lightning. Stacy ran to Basil's side. Wink and Everest were already there, helping her to stand. Basil was stunned, but alive. She took a few wobbly steps and slumped over Everest, who bowed down to catch her. Wink helped position her over Everest's back. The helicopter suddenly appeared overhead and dropped a red substance over an unburned area of the taiga. Everest stood at Stacy's side, ever her protector, Basil lying motionless across his back. "Let's go," Stacy shouted over the strangely familiar whirring of the helicopter blades, and with that, Stacy and her wolves raced back to the cave. So there you can see the wolf pups, and you can see Basil on Everest's back. The cave was oddly quiet given the number of animals that were currently occupying the small space. Everyone had settled down to wait out the fire. Tucker was already licking the new pups all over like he was their mama. Noah was busying himself trying to keep the guests hydrated. Paige was sitting just outside the cave, ready to receive any messages that might come through from the bats. Stacy walked over to Everest, who was standing guard over Basil. Wink was lying on the floor next to her. She'd passed out, probably from the pain, when they were on the way back to the cave, and she hadn't woken up yet. "How is she?" Stacy asked Everest. He had sad, silver eyes, told Stacy that Basil's condition was not good. Stacy examined the jagged red line on her from the lightning strike. "Once Noah's done getting everybody water, let's have him rinse off some of this blood. We've got to keep the wound clean. An infection is what could do her in if she's not already bleeding internally." Stacy walked over to the cave entrance. She was proud of herself that she had managed to keep it together in front of Everest and Wink. On the inside, she was anything but calm. "Basil can't die. She needs to make it through the night. If she can do that, then she should be able to pull through." The rain continued as night began to draw near. As far as Stacy could tell, peering out of the cave entrance at the charred surroundings, the fire was extinguished. Suddenly, Stacy heard a muffled voice coming from the trees at the edge of the clearing. "Better get inside, Paige," Stacy said. But as she was turning to escort the dog inside, she saw Addison emerge from the trees where the voice had come from. "Addie!" Stacy shouted in a hushed voice. "What are you doing? Get in here now!" As Addison walked toward her, Stacy could see that she had something in her mouth. A crackled voice rang out. It was coming from Addison. "You stole a walkie-talkie?" Stacy grabbed the device from Addison's mouth. "You're a genius, Addison." Stacy turned up the dial on top of the walkie-talkie and held it up to her ear to try to make out what the voices were saying. "We're going to circle over the ridge one more to make sure, but the rain did most of the work for us. Fire's contained now. Over." Stacy breathed a sigh of overwhelming relief. The fire wasn't all the way out, but the danger of it spreading was gone. One by one, the various animals left the cave, bowing their heads in thanks to Stacy and the wolves as they exited. Soon the cave was empty again. Tucker was at Basil's side, and Stacy knew he wouldn't sleep tonight. Everest had positioned himself at the cave entrance to stand guard for the night, while Stacy took her usual spot with the wolves to sleep. She rested her head on Wink's back and let the wolf pups curl up against her stomach. Paige curled up at her feet, tucked in between Addison and Noah. Stacy closed her eyes, but sleep did not come. The peace she usually felt nestled among the wolves was no longer there. Did someone really start this fire intentionally? Is the taiga going to be turned into a golf course? Will the village roll back the wolf bounty now that most of Dusky's pack has perished in the fire? How many firefighters spotted me today? How many saw my wolves? Will they come looking for us? Why did the helicopter affect me the way it did? Something about the sound of the blades had been so familiar to Stacy, but the memory was too wispy and far away to grasp. Like today, it was connected to smoke and burning. And her parents. A memory? I think it has to do with the part of the forest that the wolves don't want me to explore, beyond where the moose was stuck. There were too many questions circling around and around in her head, just like the helicopter. She could not make sense of it, but for all uncertainty, Stacy felt there was one thing of which she was absolutely sure. She was more determined than ever to protect her wolves, defend the taiga, and find the answers to her and find the answers to her all of these questions, even if it meant interacting more with humans. Stacy stared up at the cave ceiling, at peace with her new mission. One of the wolf pups yawned and turned over. Things are about to change around here, that's for certain, but we will have to wait until tomorrow. So, that is the end of book 1 of Wild Rescuers Guardians of the Taiga by StacyPlays. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. She's been one of my favorite YouTubers for a while, and I figured some of my YouTuber friends in class would enjoy that story. But yeah, I have the second book if we want to start it. Later today, I'll post a poll if you want me to start that book, or I will post a couple I Survived books as well, because those are chapter books as well, and they will keep me busy reading chapters to you. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you vote on the link that's coming out later today, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!